The Last of Us Season 1 premiere recently released to rave reviews. But of course, this has brought in a discussion of video game adaptations and what makes them successful. I think it's going to be a big trend going forward with many game adaptations set to be released in 2023. And I've been seeing a lot of people compare The Last of Us and talking about its HBO budget as its recipe for success. So I was curious to see how The Last of Us budgets compared to other game adaptations. So today I'm going to look at The Last of Us compared to The Witcher, compared to Halo, to see if their budgets play a part in their acceptance of a good game adaptation. Spoiler, it doesn't. I think with many other business decisions, it really comes down to how you allocate your resources. But let's get into these numbers. It's been reported that The Last of Us has a $10 million per episode budget. It previously was announced that it had 10 episodes, but now has 9 episodes as the first 2 episodes were combined. So we're looking at least $90 to $100 million for the season 1. The Witcher has also a $10 million per episode budget. It had 8 episodes in its first season, giving it at least an $80 million budget. And again, Halo has a $10 million per episode budget. Similar to The Last of Us, it has 9 episodes and has at least a $90,000 budget. So straight off the bat, these 3 series all have very similar budgets.
It's all the same.
But looking at their reviews, that's where things differ. After its premiere, The Last of Us is sitting at a 96% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Season 1 of The Witcher is sitting on a 90% audience score, and season 1 of Halo is sitting at a 52% audience score. Now, there is a lot of discussion around what makes something successful, because looking at these audience scores, Halo was not successful. But that doesn't tell the whole story. Halo actually set premiere viewership records for Paramount Plus. They didn't give specific numbers, so it's hard to compare it to the other shows. But in comparison, it topped 1883, which previously drew in 4.9 million viewers in a promotional linear airing behind Yellowstone. So that's sort of like around the number we're looking at. The Witcher Season 1 also broke Netflix records with reportedly a 76 million member households watching. I don't know what that sentence means, but I'm assuming it's viewership, or they're counting all the members within a membership. But we're just going to simplify it and say viewers. Now, Netflix typically doesn't share its viewers. It typically just shares its watch time. But clearly this was a big deal at the time, and they shared that information. Now, for context, this 67 million views is within its first 4 weeks. The Halo viewership record was just for its premiere night. And with The Last of Us, this is also just for its premiere night. It's just been announced that across its linear and HBO Max, The Last of Us Season 1 Episode 1 drew 4.7 million viewers. It marks the largest debut after House of Dragons since Boardwalk Empire launched in 2010. These numbers are all big numbers, and all these shows have either been renewed or are gonna be renewed for another season. The Halo has already been renewed for a season 2. Potentially that season 2 might be coming out in 2023. The Witcher has its season 3 coming out in 2023 and has already been renewed for a season 4. And there are reports that The Last of Us has been internally reviewed for a season 2 and 3. They were just waiting on these premiership numbers to see if that renewal was confirmed with the numbers. And I think comparing the premiere viewership compared to Euphoria's premiere viewership last year, its season 2 brought in 2.4 million viewers across all its platforms. That was also on a Sunday night, the same day as The Last of Us, but The Last of Us has doubled its premiere viewership. So with Euphoria already being renewed, I think it's pretty safe to say that The Last of Us is in a great position to be renewed for at least a season 2, if not a season 3. I think it's really interesting to look at those 3 shows, The Last of Us, The Witcher, and Halo. There are vastly different opinions on each show, but they're all very similar in their premieres and their first seasons all broke records. They all had a very similar budget. But you know, I was curious to see how The Last of Us would compare to another Naughty Dog video game adaptation. Last year, the movie Uncharted was released, which is a Naughty Dog adaptation to their video game. Uncharted had a budget of $120 million. Now, granted, this is a movie compared to a TV show, so we got different goals in mind here, but let's have a look. $120 million was its budget. It had a runtime of 1 hour and 56 minutes. So that's nearly $60 million per hour of screen time. Comparing that to The Last of Us, where it's got a $10 million per episode. Its episodes range from 1 hour to 1 hour and a half. We're gonna just round it down to 1 hour because if we take into account the 1 hour and a half, it's got even less of a budget. But let's say it has a $10 million per hour of screen time. Uncharted is 6 times more expensive per screen time, which is crazy. But again, like I said, I think they have 2 different goals in mind. If you guys have been paying attention to like Sony and Naughty Dog's promotional stuff, they have been pushing game sales after the premiere of the TV show. It's obviously high on their priority list to convert viewers into gamers if they haven't already played the game. We've seen a lot of success for this previously with Cyberpunk. When the series dropped on Netflix, their revenue was up by 70%. The Witcher game sales were up 554% after the series was released. So there is a big market in converting viewers into gamers. But I don't think that was the goal for the movie Uncharted. I think the goal for the movie Uncharted was to make it successful as a movie.
It feels like a movie.
Which it was, and Sony Pictures CEO was obviously very excited about its success of the movie, and they're reportedly making it into a movie franchise. That's the difference between like The Last of Us and Uncharted. They've got 2 different markets they're setting their goals on, which will have different outcomes, obviously. But yeah, I'm really excited to see the future of game adaptations. I think there's been a lot of experimenting to see what works, what doesn't work. We've seen a lot of what hasn't worked in the past. We've been seeing a bit more, I think, of what does work. So I'm excited to see where this all goes in the future.
The world is changing.
I personally hope they do the BioShock adaptation really well because I love that game, but you know, Netflix with its cancellations, it makes me a little bit nervous. But if you were curious at all where that $10 million per episode budget was being spent for The Last of Us, check out this video here. Otherwise, I'll see you all in my next video. Okay, bye.